It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast with Ryan and Jacob. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, we're going to be talking about the Thor Love and Thunder teaser. Also going to be talking about Moon Knight Episode 3 and Daredevil Episode 5. It's going to be a lot of fun. But first, I got to introduce my main man, my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We're recording this on a Monday night. I actually got a surprising day off today. Normally I work on Mondays, but I got a text. My boss was like, hey, you can take the day off, light day after Easter. We're not doing much. I'm like, okay, I just had a pretty easy day. I watched an extra movie. I finished my book that I'm doing on my second channel. I finished The Woman in the Window. That was a fascinating read. So I've had a pretty good day, and a pretty good week as well. Catching up on these Marvel shows. I saw Fantastic Beasts in theaters. I'll share more of that in the movie section. So it's been a pretty good week this past week. How's it going on your end, Ryan?
It's going really well. I did the Easter Beach run. That was on Saturday. It was a 4-mile race. The most I had done in a race was 3. So I was throwing myself into the deep end there. I ended up doing it in 43 minutes and 13 seconds, which the last time I did that race, it was about 5-ish years ago, I finished dead last. So to go from that to about mid-pack, I find that to be an amazing, I thought that was an outstanding time. I'm very proud of what I was able to accomplish there. And now I'm just diving headfirst, both figuratively and literally, into training for the Great Salt Lake Swim that I'm going to be doing in June. So just preparing for that.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted on whatever you do sports-wise. You should be proud of the amazing accomplishment that you did. That was a really good improvement to go from last to middle of the pack. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I was a little upset with myself when I crossed the finish line, because I was like, there was a part of me that's like, and maybe this is just the competitive side that comes out in everyone, but I was like, I should have done so much better than that. But then I forgot just the context of last time I did it. Like I was like just last one. It took me like an hour to do it. Now I'm doing it in less than 45 minutes. I consider that to be a great improvement. So it was easy for me to get on top of myself, because I'm always hard on myself. I think too much, I feel too much. That is my curse. But thinking about it in the context of where I was to where I am now, I am very proud of myself.
It's good to hear that.
Well, anyway, let's briefly touch on some stuff we've been watching lately, because we do have a lot to unpack with Thor and Moon Knight and Daredevil and a ton of other stuff. So, Jacob, briefly, what have you been watching lately?
Some recent stuff I've been watching lately and videos that have been coming to my channel. Ryan, you were just recently on a live chat. We talked about Jupiter Ascending for a good hour. That was an experience. You can go check out my channel and watch that video if you missed it. That was a bizarre, epic misfire of a movie.
That is for sure.
But moving on, on one of my recent videos where I vlogged my movie experiences, I finally watched the film Under Siege for the first time, starring Steven Seagal. This was one of those, Hollywood had that trend after the success of Die Hard, where they would take the premise of Die Hard and recycle it with different things. Like, for example, with Speed, you got Die Hard on a bus. Air Force One, Die Hard on a plane. Under Siege, it's Die Hard on a battleship. Terrorists come and hijack this Navy ship. Steven Seagal is the cook on this ship, and he's the one who has to take our bad guys out. The bad guy in this place is played by a ridiculously over-the-top Tommy Lee Jones. The movie itself, even with the recycled premise, you could do the rip-off premise and it can still be entertaining. I actually do really like Air Force One. That movie's awesome. Speed, I've shockingly never seen before, but I've heard it's one of the better ones, so I need to check that movie out sometime. Under Siege, to me, the movie just fell flat. I like Tommy Lee Jones as the villain. He was a lot of fun, but Steven Seagal didn't do much for me. Like his limited acting, I didn't think the action sequences were near as good. He definitely doesn't hold a candle compared to other action stars of that era, whether Bruce Willis or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. Those had more charisma and charm. Seagal just didn't really do much for me, and so I was just kind of bored by the end of the day. Apparently, this is seen as one of his better movies, but if this is one of his better movies, then I don't think there's that much to offer for me.
Yeah, I only really know Seagal primarily because I don't know if you're familiar with the YouTube channel JonTron, but I think about a year ago he made a video about Steven Seagal and all of basically how he is a jack of all trades but a master of none. I can't really do the video justice. It is hysterical how Steven Seagal thinks that he's a Russian diplomat and that he can also sing, that he can also do karate very badly. It's just, like I can't do the video justice, but that's really all that I know from Seagal. That and this really bad movie called Fire Down Below, which I just was not a fan of. Like he wears like this leather jacket, like this leather outfit throughout the entire movie, like in this small town, and it just felt out of place. It just felt like it was like if I'm gonna be in this, I'm wearing this outfit and nothing else. So it just felt like he was flexing his creative control.
Yeah, this is the first Seagal movie that I've seen him in as the lead. I had seen him previously in supporting work, like he had a small part in the '90s film Executive Decision starring Kurt Russell. He's hardly in it, but the small doses of him, there was some pretty cool stuff with him. And he had a supporting part as well in Machete from 2010, Robert Rodriguez. And I think I prefer Seagal more in chunks because his action skills are nowhere as good as other action stars of the day, and his acting is definitely not as good as some of the other action stars of his caliber.
Yeah, it seems like he kind of got lost in the shuffle. It is just like he's one of a generation, but like he's the one that like drifted off and just kind of never came back, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I don't. I think most people I've seen online don't really take him that seriously of an actor and think he's more of the joke version of what Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone was back in their heyday.
I kind of get the like he's a legend in his own mind kind of vibes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh,
what else do you have?
Um, recent celebrating Disney review. I actually reviewed the documentary Driving Home to You, which dropped on Disney Plus. This is the Olivia Rodrigo documentary that dropped, which is about her and the creative process behind her critically acclaimed album from 2021, Sour. And this is coming from a newbie who I knew Olivia Rodrigo by name. I saw episodes of High School Musical, the series, which she starred in. And I heard some of her songs in there, like Driver's License, which broke big, and Good for You. But I wasn't like that overly familiar with her as an artist or a person. So this was a really fascinating watch. I wouldn't have watched it had it not been for a subscriber request on my channel. And I thought the film was pretty interesting. Like I thought the film did a good job at diving into the creative process behind how she came up with all the songs on her album. She performed all the songs live, and they were directed really well with her and her band doing really cool ways of performing these songs. And I really love the cinematography in this movie as well, as it's we follow her on a road trip throughout Utah and California, and some of the landscapes in the documentary are absolutely beautiful. I think this is a good watch whether you're a diehard fan of Olivia Rodrigo or if you're like me who know her but don't fully know the the method of who don't fully know the method or don't understand her and want to know more about her, this is a good place to start. I did highly enjoy this movie for what it was.
The only really thing that I know about Olivia Rodrigo is that she was actually getting sued for for something along the lines of like copyright infringement because a lot of her songs sound similar to others. And I just when I heard that I was like, I mean, most songs or most genres of songs that I'm aware of kind of play off of each other anyway. It's called sampling. As long as if you acknowledge, hey, I'm going to cover this, then say it's a cover. But unless it's like a direct cover of something, then I always just say it's kind of like the old saying: if you borrow from one thing, it's plagiarism, but if you borrow from multiple things, it's research.
Yeah. And most artists do that anyway, and they don't have any issues with it whatsoever. So I don't get why some artists get attacked for this and others get away with no problem. I think sampling is okay when you have a creative spin on what was originally set up and still make it your own. And I feel like Olivia does that with her songs. And I can now say I'm a fan more so of her as an artist after seeing this movie.
Well, that's interesting. So, what else you got?
All right. Another one I've recently checked out is for my Sony animation series. I've watched Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. And this movie, I have actually never seen before until this viewing. I saw the first one, of course. It was one I thought was okay at the time, and I love the movie now on rewatch. It was one that was greatly ahead of its time. A lot of that being due to it being directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and they are some of the dominant forces in the animation industry today. Well, this movie didn't have Lord and Miller in the director's chair, unfortunately. I think they had story credit, but you can tell a completely different crew directed and produced this movie, and it lacked all of the humor and charm that made the first movie so good. I liked aspects within the story, but I didn't find it near as entertaining or even subversive. Like, I predicted every single beat that was going to happen in the sequel. Like, as soon as I saw this character, I knew that was going to be the villain. As soon as I saw they were doing, you know, food creatures on the island, I'm like, oh, they're going to be misunderstood and they're not going to be horrible monsters and there's more at work. I predicted that Flint Lockwood would turn on his friends because he's manipulated by somebody that he thinks is his friend. And that's a trope that annoys me in a lot of these movies. And it makes all the characters come off horribly unlikable. I didn't enjoy this movie near as much. I was kind of bored by it. I do like the animation. It's as good as in the original. There's a couple of occasional funny moments, some clever food puns in there that got a little chuckle out of me. But overall, I thought this film was a massive disappointment. It definitely a cash grab compared to how awesome the first movie was.
Yeah, I remember seeing this, but at the same time, I don't really remember all that much of it. Honestly, the only thing that I really know about it is the trailer, and they make the joke of there's a leak in their boat, not like a leak, like an actual leak, but like the
The
vegetable leak in the
vegetable.
boat. And Flint's like, "There's a leak in the boat," and I'm like, okay, that's kind of a dad joke
Yeah.
there, but that's
And
the only thing I remember.
they do a lot of food puns throughout the whole movie because it's like different foods and creatures mixed together. Like there's a cheeseburger spider and a taco supreme dial or tacodile. It got ridiculous after a while. And the shrimp pansy.
Yeah, there wasn't there this butter creature where it like pokes us up is like butter or like something like that.
Yeah, there was one. And those were some of the best laughs in the movie. And then I was disappointed that Mr. T didn't reprise his role as Earl the Cop. It was Terry Crews who played him in the sequel. I mean, he's good, but he's not Mr. T. There's only one Mr. T, and he was the one who made that character funny.
Yeah, the only one person can pity the fool.
Yep.
Anyway,
All right.
what else you got?
And then another movie I checked out, Going back to early Hitchcock. I love talking about early Hitchcock. This time it's the movie Number 17, released in 1932. This movie, what's interesting, the last movie I talked about, Rich and Strange, that movie flopped so bad. The studio made Alfred Hitchcock direct this movie, a movie they had no faith in, as punishment for their last movie doing so bad. That is a weird practice to do. Apparently, that's what studios did back in the old days of cinema. I don't know how that would do anything or warrant anything to make your other movie bad. It's like, hey, your last movie was bad. Let's make you have a worse movie to make you look even worse. Like, that does not make sense to me at all, but that was 1930s for you. But anyway, Number 17 is a movie which involves jewel thieves, and they gather together in a house and they plan their heist, and they plan on stealing the jewels, and then there's twists and turns, and then there's a big climax involving a runaway train. And I'm sorry about the plot being vague, and that's because this movie was ridiculously hard to follow. The movie is just over an hour long, and that is a ridiculously short runtime to set up a story involving a bunch of jewel thieves and double crosses and twists and turns. I didn't care about any of these characters. There's no standout character in this movie. So whenever something shocking happens, I'm like, I don't care. What's sad though is that this movie felt like the prototype for great Hitchcock movies going forward. Even though it seemed like this was like the studio punishing Hitchcock movie, Hitchcock put a lot of effort into the craftsmanship of this movie. This movie looks really good. There's some great shadows and camera angles in this movie. And I really like the climax in this movie. The climax, like I said, involves a runaway train. Yeah, the movie uses a lot of model work and it kind of looks cheap in today's standards, but I guess because I grew up with Thomas the Tank Engine as a kid and I love seeing the model trains and ridiculous crashes and stuff. Seeing a 1930s movie that used similar tactics, I thought it was still pretty cool none the same. There was a lot of potential in this movie. I think if the script was better polished, the characters were more fleshed out, this would be a hidden gem. But unfortunately, because of the short runtime, the uninteresting characters, and how ridiculously convoluted it was, it fell short at the end of the day.
You know, judging from what you were saying, it sounds like he's like Hitchcock's finding his way out of the wilderness. He's not there yet, but he's getting closer by the day.
Yeah, I got two movies left until The Man Who Knew Too Much. And then after that, it's going to be from here to probably a little bit more and more and more. And then we'll get to Rebecca when he moves to Hollywood, and it'll go, boom! We're
Yeah,
getting there.
it really does show that that an overnight success is just someone who's worked really, really hard and is finally catching their big break.
Yeah, it's been good going through this journey because I didn't know Hitchcock had many stinkers in his British era. I thought, oh, he was already good even at the beginning. But nah, there were some really dull movies that I had to go through in this project. And so to see that I'm finally getting close. This movie wasn't great, but I can see the ingredients and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. It's definitely smooth sailing going forward.
Well, that sounds great, and hallelujah. Am I
Oh
right?
yeah. And then the last movie I was gonna share, continuing in my series of Richard Donner reviews, I recently watched Scrooge. Christmas came early on my channel. This video actually dropped the day after Easter, so that's pretty crazy. This movie, of course, is the modernized, at least set in the 80s, version of A Christmas Carol. Bill Murray plays our Scrooge type character, Frank Cross. He runs the TV studio. He pretty much just cross everybody. He's rude to everybody. He does a lot of false advertising tactics to get people to watch his programming. And instead of spending time with the family for Christmas, he instead hosts a 24-hour live broadcast of A Christmas Carol starring Buddy Hackett, of all people. And pretty much like A Christmas Carol, Frank Cross gets haunted by three ghosts who show him the error of his ways, and they show him what will happen if he doesn't change or improve. This one actually focuses more into the romance elements that might have been overlooked in the original Christmas Carol story. This one, Frank had a past romance with the character Claire, played by Karen Allen, Marion from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They had a past relationship, but because he got more selfish and obsessed with his job, that put a strain in their relationship. So this one has more of a rom-com approach compared to other versions of A Christmas Carol, and I like seeing that play out. But I also love that it's also a dark comedy and satire that's poking fun of modern commercialization of Christmas. And the movie was crazy ahead of its time because of that. Like there's a reference where characters are like, how about we put subliminal message in our advertisements to where it can attract cats to watch a movie. And you're watching that, and I'm like, that sounds ridiculous. Why would you even do that? But now we got the Kitten Bowl on the Hallmark Channel, and you're like, wow, the Scrooge movie predicted that. That is insane to me. I do highly enjoy this movie. This is one of my favorite versions of A Christmas Carol. Bill Murray is great as always. Some really good visual effects, even for a comedy like this. Like I did enjoy a lot of the effects to make the ghosts come to life. And Richard Donner did a great job of adding, dark horror capabilities, even though the film is definitely more comedic in its approach. It does a good job of, maintaining the horror elements of the story to really scare the crap out of our main character. I do highly enjoy this. I love the ending as well. Bill Murray's ad-lib monologue at the end is one of the best acting I've seen Bill Murray do, because even though he improvised the entire speech, you can tell it was so genuine. A character that was very cross and is now a character willing to change and improve and help others. It definitely felt real, and I love that style of acting that made his character very genuine and real. And the ending of this movie is fantastic. One of my favorite films from Richard Donner, and one of my favorite adaptations of A Christmas Carol.
I've been eyeing to do this for Chris Mania in December, and I've been eyeing to review that for that series. And hearing that, it's pretty much confirms that I'm definitely going to do it, because I think the best Christmas Carol adaptation is the 51 version from Alistair Sim, or starring Alistair Sim, excuse me. It's one that I watch reliably every year without fail, and it's actually on YouTube if you know where to look. So I don't know how it got away from it. Maybe it's in public domain, I'm not sure, but it's one of the best Christmas carols adaptations ever made. But I've never seen Scrooged, but I'm now tempted to see it. I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, it's definitely one. I think it was more mixed when it came out, but it got more and more appreciated over time. And I think it stands out as one of the better adaptations of the story. I do agree the 51 version might not be my personal favorite, but it's still really, really good with Alistair Sim. The two I tend to rewatch every year are Scrooged, and then the Jim Carrey one that came out several years ago. I really like that one as well.
Oh yeah, the 3D animated one directed by Robert
Robert
Zemeckis.
Zemeckis, yep.
That was weird, especially since Carrey voiced like 75% of the characters. I mean, good on him for doing that and willing to take that on, but just so many choices. I was just sitting there like, why? But maybe I'll have to see it again in order to appreciate it.
Yeah, it's one I've always really enjoyed. I think I first saw it. It was one of the rare movies I've seen at an IMAX theater, and that pretty much enhanced the experience for me.
All right, well,
And
as
then,
far as things that I've been watching, it's actually quite small, but I ended up seeing Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, which I do have a review of. If you'd like to check that out, it's on the channel. And this is honestly my favorite of these Fantastic Beasts movies, but that's really not saying all of that much. I will give the movie credit. It seems to be focusing up in terms of the story they want to tell. It is underperforming, so it's debatable whether or not we're going to get the fourth and fifth movie, but I have a strong feeling that we will. At the same time, though, if they do a fourth and a fifth, I'm glad they're focusing on the relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. I won't spoil anything, Jacob. If have you seen it?
I did see the movie. I forgot to mention it, but I've seen it.
I won't talk about too much in terms of spoilers, but I'll just talk about general stuff if I need to. But I like the direction that they went there. I was more invested with how they came to their respective sides rather than all the Fantastic Beasts and just all of that stuff. So it seems like they're finally starting to focus up and looking to focus on the things that it honestly should have been doing to begin with. So it's not a mission accomplished. It's a step in the right direction, and I think that's the nicest thing that I could say about it.
Yeah, this also was my favorite of the Fantastic Beasts movies. Now, I don't think it's a great movie, and I don't think it's near as good as any of the Harry Potter movies, but I do agree. It is a step in the right direction. I think of the three Fantastic Beasts movies, this is the best structured out of the three. I feel like it's easily the best pace. It definitely kept its focus on the story that I think it wanted to tell, the whole dynamic of Dumbledore and Grindelwald and where different characters fall in that battle. And that was what made the movie fascinating. I love the political thriller route that it took and kind of the parallels with between the Wizarding World and pretty much Nazi Germany, pretty much. And I enjoyed where that played out and the overall direction that took. I liked the whole. I think the cast overall is pretty good. I especially enjoyed Jude Law. I thought was fantastic as Dumbledore, as he's starting to slowly closer resemble the Dumbledore that we know and love in the Harry Potter movies. And I thought he did a fantastic job. And some of the twists and turns related to him and his history, I thought was very fascinating. It took me a while, I'll admit, to get used to Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald. I've said time and again I was a fan of Johnny Depp's portrayal in the previous film, even though the movie itself wasn't that good. And I was very soured when he got forced out of the role and recast. So it took me a while to get used to seeing a different portrayal, as Mads is pretty much doing his own interpretation and not copying what Johnny Depp did. But the more I got into the movie, the more I got used to his performance, and I thought Mads was pretty good as well. A part of me wished we had still gotten Johnny Depp as Grindelwald. I'm sure there's an alternate timeline somewhere where that would have been the case. But Mads was still really good, and I enjoyed seeing the Dumbledore Grindelwald dynamic play out. And it was very fascinating to see that, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the other films if we ever get them. While I still have issues with this movie, it's still a highly enjoyable entry. I feel like the magic that might have been lacking in the other two films was definitely brought back in this movie. I did enjoy the action in this film, and it was all around a step in the right direction for this franchise. And I hope the film does enough where we can get the other entries because I want to see where it leads.
Yeah, me too. And honestly, I did not think I would be saying that. I hope the next one is good because I was not a humongous fan of Fantastic Beasts and Fantastic Beasts 2. I didn't hate them, but I was just like, what's even the point of this? It feels like now they're finding a point to where it's like, all right, this is going to be the inside story of how Dumbledore became Dumbledore and how he took out Grindelwald and basically gave us 50-ish years, 60-ish years of peace until Voldemort came along. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Fantastic Beasts 4, which is more than I thought I would be saying coming out of it. But the last movie that I ended up seeing, and last one before we get into the Thor trailer, is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I'm going to have a full review of it, hopefully by the time this airs. But this is my new favorite movie of 2022, with the caveat that as of this recording, this coming weekend, we're getting The Bad Guys from DreamWorks. We're getting The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, the new Nick Cage movie, and The Northman, directed by Robert Eggers, and it's one of my favorite movies I've yet to see. I'm so looking forward to it. So it's gonna have heavy competition, but as of right now, sitting here on this Monday night, Everything Everywhere All at Once is my favorite movie of the year. I can't quite describe it because it's, I guess, to describe it in layman's terms, it's about a woman who is confronted by her husband, but from another dimension. And it's up to her to save her dimension and all the others. And really, that's the layman's terms, because the rest of the movie is pure chaos. But what I love what they did, the directors, Daniels, that's what the duo's called. They keep it focused on a singular story between a mother and a daughter. I hope I'm not spoiling anything by that, because that's really the heart of the matter. Because a lot of crazy stuff happens in this. This is an A24 movie, so of course that's going to happen. But they keep it grounded in a realistic story of a relationship between a mother getting older and a daughter trying to find her way in this crazy world. I love that. I love the spirit of that. When I walked out of there, I was thinking to myself, is this the most A24 movie ever made? And then I said to myself, no, we're getting that Men movie from Alex Garland in a couple months, and we're also getting Marcel the Shell Who Wears Shoes, which is also from A24, about a sentient talking shell. Yes, that's an actual thing. Jacob, I'll send you the trailer in case you haven't seen it, because it
I
just
don't know
blew
anything
it,
about that.
it blew my mind. But I think that's going to take the cake for the most A24 movie ever. A talking seashell. But Everything Everywhere All at Once is awesome. I'm going to have a full review of it, hopefully in the next couple of days before this airs.
Yeah, I really want to see this movie. I think the last time we chat, like after we wrapped up the live stream on my channel, you had talked about wanting to see this movie. I'm like, there's no theaters in my area that's seeing it. Well, now, as soon as we said that, I think this past weekend it's in my area. So I do plan on seeing this movie this week after we wrap up the podcast. I cannot wait to see this movie. I do enjoy A24. I think I enjoy their more smaller personal films more so than their weird and wacky films. I'm not the biggest fan of The Lighthouse, but there's some that I do enjoy for their weirdness, like Hereditary and what was that other one? The Green Knight last year. The Green Knight had some weird stuff, but I still really dug that one. But I'm intrigued by how A24 is going to handle the whole multiverse thing, as that's like a hot topic in movies right now with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness in the MCU. We got The Flash coming out next year. So there's really exciting stuff and many possibilities you could do with this concept. And it's cool that A24 has kind of jumped on this bandwagon and doing their own unique spin on a very popular trend in movies right now. And I've heard nothing but incredible things about it. Of course, I've always been a fan of Michelle Yeoh. I love her in movies like Tomorrow Never Dies, one of my favorite Bond girls in a movie. And I love her in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And then the kid who played Short Round, I think he's in this movie, if I'm not mistaken. I'm excited to see him in this movie. Like, where has he been? I'm excited to see that.
I actually read in an interview that he quit acting because of the lack of roles for Asian Americans, which is just incredibly sad, but it also speaks to how far we've come in terms of, and I don't want to like sound like diversity. No, that's not my goal, but I just want to say just how far we've come in terms of the diversity and how we've opened things up for more people to get into more movies. I love that. I love the spirit of that. And honestly, I've never hated Short Round. He had his annoying moments, sure, but he was useful. I mean, he knocked out the voodoo kid. You know, when the kid had the voodoo doll of Indiana Jones, Short Round stopped him. So he could have been annoying, yes, but he was at least useful in trying to help Indy. I mean, he drove. Like, how many 8-year-olds you know that you drive or that they drive?
Yeah, I've always liked Short Round. Even as a kid when I first watched, I'm like, Short Round's one of the coolest characters in this whole movie. And even now, years later, I think he's a cool character. I thought he was a really good child actor between Short Round and his role in the Goonies. He had those two amazing roles, and then he just disappeared. I was very concerned about what happened to him. And it's cool that, he's now in the place where he's like, okay, we're getting more Asian movies and Asian characters and stuff like that. They're making sure everybody has their place in movies. And I think I can start acting again and be heard. I really like that. I can't wait to see what else he'll do in the future. I can't wait.
Yeah, here's to hoping he's cast in more stuff because he does deserve it. Well, anyway, let's talk about the teaser trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder, which just dropped earlier today. This was a very highly discussed teaser in that it wasn't out for like a really long time. The movie's coming out in July, and people were like, where's the teaser? People were getting concerned, but we finally got it, and I thought it was a pretty good teaser. It got me interested to see what's going to happen. So, Jacob, what did you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the trailer. Of course, I didn't have to see a trailer for a new Marvel movie, especially one with an established character like Thor. You could have just told me Thor: Love and Thunder coming out in July, directed by Taika Waititi, and I would have said automatically sold because I love what Taika brought to Thor Ragnarok. It's my favorite of the Thor movies to date. And this looks like it's going to continue that wild, wacky style that Taika brought in the last Thor movie, but cranking it up to 11. I love the colorful worlds that he brought within the shots I've seen in the trailer. It looks like it's going to embrace the absurdity of its world building even more. I like that we're seeing Thor team up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm surprised we haven't seen Christian Bale in the trailer yet. I know they've cast him to play a character named Gore the God Butcher, but with a name like that, played by one of the best actors working today, I am excited to see what the combo of that's going to bring. We'll see how it goes. I know Natalie Portman's coming back to play Jane Foster, but as Lady Thor, I think that's like one of the more divisive elements I've seen from people, but I don't know how the comics are. I think if the writing is done well and if Natalie is passionate about coming back and Taika, who's hands-on the script, believe that's a good choice, then I have no doubt that I think this element will be an entertaining addition to an already stacked cast and what looks to be a wild, wacky premise in the MCU. I thought this was a fun trailer. I like that it didn't show much. It just showed some cool visuals, some funny banter between characters, especially with Thor and Star-Lord. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen in July. This is one of my most anticipated movies of the summer for sure.
Yeah, I already saw the comments. This is the beginning of the MCU. Thor is pretty much a non-factor. I'm like,
Oh
you
no.
guys haven't even seen the movie yet, and here you are. It, it,
Those,
it just
those comments annoy me so much.
you haven't even seen the movie, and you're already writing it off. Like either see the movie or don't. But just I don't know. It just feels like people say that crap just to get a rise out of people. It's like Ernest T. Bass from the Andy Griffith Show, who threw rocks through people's windows just to get a rise out of them. Just a complete and total pest. There's a bunch of Ernest T. Basses running around, not only on this website, but just social media in general. But that's a whole nother rant for another time. I'm looking forward to this movie. I'm thinking it's going to be good. I mean, it's Taika Waititi. People are actually slandering Taika Waititi, say like, "Oh, this is going to be the bad one." I'm like, Taika Waititi has the Midas touch right now. Like What We Do in the Shadows, Jojo Rabbit, Thor Ragnarok. The dude knows what he's doing. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it was weird seeing the discourse on Twitter today. People are like, why are we hating on Jojo Rabbit all of a sudden? Taika Waititi in general. I guess the people that are offended by everything are like, oh, he made that Hitler movie. Taika's a bad person now. I'm like, did you even see Jojo Rabbit? That was like satire making fun of all that. And that movie was genius. It was one of his best movies. So I don't really get the hate for Taika Waititi all of a sudden. I don't know if it's those angry fanboys who don't like seeing women heroes or anything like that. I am excited to see this movie. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see which one will be the better MCU movie because right now I'm more hyped for Multiverse of Madness because of Sam Raimi's involvement. But Love and Thunder looks like it's going to be some serious competition between those two movies because of the two amazing creative talents involved.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit had one of the most like affecting scenes that I had seen in any movie that year, with the whole thing where Jojo is like walking along and then he sees his mom's shoes. If you know, you know, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, Thor: Love and Thunder, it looks pretty great. But let's dive into some Moon Knight talk. We both watched episode 3. It's called The Friendly Type. And Jacob, you and I both have been digging the show, and I'm going to have a full review of this episode coming very soon. So, Jacob, what did you think of the episode?
All right, interesting story on this episode. I actually had to watch it twice. The first time I watched it, which was the Wednesday night, I had a terrible headache that night. And I tried watching Moon Knight and I watched it all the way through. I was enjoying about half of it, but then once it got like really weird and wacky and they were adjusting the alignments of stars and stuff like that, I was really struggling to concentrate. I dozed off because my head was so pounding. I remember I woke up, saw a shot of Ethan Hawke, and the credits rolled. I'm like, what just happened? I don't know what happened in this whole episode. I am so confused right now. And that bugged me for a good while. And then the Sunday night was when I finally am like, okay, I got to rewatch this episode. I need to actually see it in good context, be in a good frame of mind to actually enjoy this and not suffer with a very bad headache. And so, having seen this episode twice, it's a really good episode. It definitely packs a lot. There's a lot of stuff you got to follow in here. You still got your main character and all his multiple personalities that clash throughout the course of the episode. There's dark secrets that come to play, not just with his character, but also for his love interest. Her name, I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Lydia, I think.
Layla.
Layla, thank you. And there's some secrets related to her character that are just coming to play that I'm really intrigued to see explore. I like the whole concept of characters in their avatars where they'll have this council and there'll be people that are chosen to represent the Egyptian gods. I thought that was a really cool concept with Oscar Isaac representing Khonshu and all the other characters representing the others. That was a brilliant concept, and I love that. And I can't wait to see more of that stuff coming to play in future episodes. This episode, I would say, had the best action of the 3 episodes of Moon Knight when we got to see Moon Knight take action near the end of this episode. Some of the choreography was absolutely insane, and I loved every second of it. I'm intrigued to see where the story is going to go. I can't fully process the end of the episode. I thought it was very out there with them manipulating stars and traveling back to see where stuff is. I don't know how that fully works, but I'm intrigued to see what'll happen to Mark, Steven, whatever this possibly other third personality that's doing dark stuff and Moon Knight in general is going to do. Is he's still going to do this stuff because I know Khonshu got imprisoned at the end. So I don't know, can he still function without the guidance of Khonshu? I don't know where that's going to go. I can't wait to see more of that, learn more about Ethan Hawke. The more I've seen his character, the more and more I love his performance and the layers within his character being the fallen hero turned bad. I can't wait to see more conflicts within these characters. The first episode is still my favorite, but episode 3, I mean, I'd say is a pretty close second. And this is a highly enjoyable show so far.
Yeah, I completely agree with pretty much everything you just said. The action scene I thought was helmed very well. You picked the wrong episode to watch with a headache,
Yeah.
especially that last part where Khonshu's like, "Let me adjust this." Boo! And he's like, Night, there it is. It's right there. Go. And so I liked it. First of all, I'm kind of digging Khonshu. He's voiced by F. Murray Abraham,
Yes.
Salieri from Amadeus. Yes, please. But he's subtly like really good in this. And I love Oscar Isaac, how he has to bounce back from being the cool and confident Mark Spector to the very scared Stephen Grant. It's kind of like an instance of we all would want to be Mark Spector, but we all secretly would probably be Stephen Grant. Oh, this show is it's keeping me invested, keeping me interested. So here's to hoping that they can stick the landing. I have a feeling that they just might. Though I have a feeling with Hammond, I hope they answer some questions I have about him very soon, because it just feels like they just had Ethan Hawke just to have Ethan Hawke. I don't know, but that's just me.
We'll just have to see where it goes. And Marvel's, I think for the most part with these shows, have had a good track record of keeping me engaged and being satisfied with where it went. The only exception, I wasn't a fan of the finale of WandaVision. It's one that's kind of soured my enjoyment of the overall series, as great as some episodes were. If Moon Knight is as good as some of my favorite Disney Plus shows, like Loki, for instance, which Loki had a cliffhanger, but that's besides the point. But if it delivers and ends on a satisfactory way and keeps me invested, I think this has potential to be one of the best of the Marvel Disney Plus series.
Well, what did you all think of Moon Knight episode 3? If you did see it, leave it in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say about it. Let's close things out by talking about Daredevil episode 5. And I am just loving the fact that you are continually loving this show, because like I said, once this show hits the gas, it does not let up. So what did you think of episode 5?
It was at a point where by the time the episode ended, I'm like, man, I'm ready to watch the next one. But we're talking about each episode on a week by week basis. It's like the classic TV mold where it's one episode per week. I'm like, we got to talk about this first before I watch the next one. It's kind of bugging me because the cliffhanger in that last episode was crazy, with Kingpin blowing up all those apartment complexes, him envisioning this world on fire, burning the world down so he could build a better one. And I was in shock by what I just saw. It was really fascinating. The fact that he's having this date with his girlfriend Vanessa. They're having this casual chat and they talk about interesting stuff within themselves. She even has a gun in her purse. And he's like, you don't need that. I'm here to protect you. But she's like, oh, I know the kind of person you are. And she just kind of rolls with it while still being horrified at the stuff that she's hearing and witnessing within this character. And it makes me intrigued to see more of this interesting little relationship between the two characters and where that's going to go in episodes to come. I enjoyed that this episode was so far the best balance between Daredevil and Matt Murdock. I almost forgot his name off the top of my head. Sorry about that. I had a brain fart for a second. But it was a good balance between both personalities of character. We got Matt Murdock investigating, some of these weird instances of characters being evicted from apartments. And then he hears that and he's taking cases on that. And as Daredevil, he's investigating by night on what's actually going on. I really like the dynamic between seeing the exploration and duality where he can be Matt Murdock, the really awesome lawyer, and the really cool vigilante Daredevil. I think it's a really cool balance. He's kind of like the MCU equivalent of Batman, and I'm really enjoying seeing, the comparison between these two characters, which I just absolutely love. It's cool seeing more Rosario Dawson in this series, and they might be hitting an on and off relationship between Daredevil and her character, and I'm curious where that's going to go. Froggy and Karen might have a relationship too, and I'm liking the chemistry between those two characters. We'll see how that goes. And like I said, I was shocked at the ending, and I'm excited to see where it goes next. Overall, really great episode. It's keeping me hooked.
Sorry, but it's Foggy.
Froggy! I keep saying Froggy. I think I've said that in other videos.
It was the first episode that we covered, but I wanted to ask you, what did you think of the scene at Landon and Zach, where I almost called him Froggy now. Shoot. But Foggy and Karen go to see because the whole Mrs. Cardenas thing. What did you think of that scene?
Oh, you're talking about the when he goes to the place where he used to work at, and then the woman went up to him, and it turns out she's like his ex girlfriend, and now they're like butting heads.
Mm-hmm.
That scene was excellent. That was one of my favorite, like back and forth tensions of the entire episode. And I like the extra icing on the cake where she's like, "Who is she again? Oh, she's my ex girlfriend." I'm like, "Dang, that was some brutal stuff he said to her." I'm like, "Wow, Foggy's on his own layers as a character. He can actually function without Matt, and he's really awesome."
Yeah, Foggy is stronger than I think even he realizes because he always kind of downplays himself. Like there's a running theme throughout this episode where he's like, my parents wanted me to be a butcher. And so it's like, oh, it's clear that they didn't want him to be a lawyer. But like he's actually quite good at this when he wants to be because he literally like he stands up to his ex-girlfriend and his like and just like says you want us to go away when we have all the power. It is just I can't do it justice. It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah, that actor's definitely come a long way from playing Fulton in The Mighty Ducks. He is low key an excellent actor.
I can't hit, you idiot. I just can't skate. Whack.
Oh man.
But anyway, yeah, you were talking about the feeling of being like, God, I want to watch the next one. Even though I had seen this season a couple times over, I felt the same way. I was in there like, I want to go ahead, but I don't think that would be right. So I just have to be patient. But that's really what makes this show so excellent. It leaves you wanting more. I love that. I love the spirit of that.
Yeah, I think comparing this to other Marvel shows, I've enjoyed pretty much all of the Marvel content so far. I thought Loki was excellent. Hawkeye had a slow start, but it had a good finish. I thought What If was pretty underrated as a show. I'm enjoying Moon Knight so far. But I think Daredevil is the only one where I'm like, this is like really pushing top tier Marvel stuff. I think I enjoyed all the other stuff, and I highly enjoy them and recommend some of these other shows. But I think Daredevil is the only one where I think I would actively go back and rewatch it because it's a fantastic layering of characters, and it's been a really good origin story for Matt Murdock and how he became a good lawyer and became Daredevil on the side. I think seeing the reputation of this show, I think the hype is actually really real. And I think it's going to be sad when I don't know how season 3 ends because I think it was abruptly canceled by Netflix originally. I think I'll be sad when we get to the third season. I'm like, that's it? There's no more Daredevil? I wish we got more. I'm already loving the show 5 episodes in season 1. It's really an excellent series, and it shows, how good the quality and the how good the quality of the show is when whether it's going to be in the official MCU canon or not. We don't know what Marvel's going to do with these characters in the future. It speaks volumes how fantastic this show is compared to some of the MCU shows that we're currently getting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be that guy who is like, oh, the MCU Disney Plus shows are terrible because I liked WandaVision up to the ending. The ending just wasn't for me. I started Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I couldn't even make it through the first episode. Not that it was bad. I just it just wasn't for me, like I said. Haven't even touched Loki. I know what happens. I watched one of those explained videos, so I know what happens. But again, I just haven't gotten around to it. What If just kind of seems a bit out of place for me. I think I'll have to get to it eventually. But just I don't know. I don't I think I now know why I haven't been able to get around to watching those because there was a better version with Daredevil and Luke Cage and Iron Fist, which was looked down upon, but I've seen a little more love for. And I can't wait to get you in touch with all of those shows. And Jessica Jones, we can't forget about that. There, I feel like there's another aspect that they're just kind of hiding away, and hopefully that they don't, at least not anymore.
Yeah, I think with them being added on Disney Plus, I think between that and the whole multiverse route, that's well, depending on how that'll be handled in Multiverse of Madness in the MCU going forward. I have a feeling that there's going to be some way where even like the Netflix shows and maybe some of the other Marvel shows that ABC was airing, like Agent of Shield and Agent Carter, some of those shows, there's probably going to be an explanation of all of these shows somehow gathered together, whether they're in the same timeline or multiple timelines. I think there's going to be a fine balance to where whether you like one show or another show, it's all connected somehow. And there's just got to be a fine balance between it all to make it work between each show.
Well, Charlie Cox's Daredevil is MCU mainline canon. We saw him in No Way Home, so he does exist. And so I feel like if Kevin Feige plays his cards right, I feel like he can put the rest in there as well. Or, I mean, at least have the Defenders in there make a brief cameo. I feel like with the multiverse, anything's possible at this point. We're talking about seeing Tom Cruise in his failed bid to get Iron Man in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, for goodness sake. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm having an amazing time covering this show with you. I'm so glad you're into it, just like I'm into it. What were your all thoughts on Daredevil Episode 5? If you've seen it, leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say about it. And that's all for this episode. I thank you all so much, as always, for watching. Jacob, thank you for joining, as always. Where can people find you?
Well, people can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, Facebook, and of course my 2 YouTube channels. I have 2 channels on my second channel, which I don't talk about as much on my podcast, but I do have a second channel, Storytime with Jacob, where I do book reviews and read-alongs. At the time of filming this video, I just finished reading The Woman in the Window. A pretty interesting book. I like the concept of the story more so than I do the execution, and that's kind of similar to my feelings on the film adaptation I've seen as well, starring Amy Adams. I do plan on diving into more books on my channel going forward. I think Fantastic Mr. Fox is going to be next. I'm excited to read that book, as I've seen the movie multiple times, but I've never read the book by Roald Dahl, so I'm excited to check that out. And then, of course, over on my main channel is where I do the movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, and other fun stuff. And then over on my main channel, I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, and other fun stuff on my channel. Recent videos that have just dropped on my channel, I did a vlog review of Under Siege where I checked it out for the first time. Of course, you can check out our recent replay, live review where me and Ryan covered Jupiter Ascending. That was a lot of fun. You can check out my recent Celebrating Disney review of Driving Home to You, the Olivia Rodrigo movie. I've reviewed Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. I have a review of Scrooge on my channel, the Alfred Hitchcock film number 17. I've covered Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, and I've got other exciting stuff coming on my channel, including an upcoming vlog in the movies video where I react to Tick Tick Boom for the first time. I have finally seen the movie, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on that movie with you guys. So a lot of awesome stuff coming on my channel.
Yes, both of his channels will be linked in the description. I highly recommend you check both of them out. And then as far as this channel goes, if you did like this video, please be sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, whenever a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. This week on the channel, my Twilight Zone vlog dropped for the episode called Dust. That's up on the channel if you'd like to check that out. I'm going to have reviews for Everything Everywhere All at Once and Moon Knight Episode 3. Those have been a bit slow, I know, but I am going to be making those, I promise. And I'm going to try my best to cover all 3 of The Bad Guys, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and The Northman. I may get 2 out of the 3 because I'm actually going to see a production of Fiddler on the Roof at my local theater. So that's going to be a ton of fun. It's actually the national tour, so it's going to be fantastic. And then this coming Sunday will be my first reaction to the Paul Verhoeven film Basic Instinct. So that's all coming to the channel. So if you'd like to check that out, please do. But that is all for us. Thank you so much for watching. That's Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.